Alright, this is a second part of that video on how to find bow drill woods. And I don't have my tripod with me today, unfortunately, so the camera might be a little bit more shaky. And we moved to a different park from the one I'm usually with. And I want to show a couple of other species and how I'd go about selecting a bow drill wood. As I was walking through, and this is primarily ash and cherry in this hardwood forest. There's a little bit of sassafras as well. In fact, the two trees to the right of the camera there is sassafras, I believe. I'm going to verify that in a moment, but just looking from the scrapings of the smaller tree near its bark, then I suggest this is sassafras. But what I'm really interested in is this smaller clump of trees that is more centered in the camera, and I don't have any leaf samples of this, but I believe that it is basswood. And there are few features here. Basswood oftentimes grows in clumps, like you see here, so this is fairly common. And another aspect is, and I'm going to try and get a little bit closer to the wood, and that's not very clear. So what we're seeing is the bark pattern with these little bits of dimples in it. And finally, one other somewhat diagnostic feature is the fact that when I grab a hold of these clumps, they're not very stiff. I can move them with a lot of ease. What drew my attention to this particular clump is arising from the clump is this dead piece here. So we see something that looks like it would be about the right size for bow drill wood, and I'm going to test it with my knife in one moment here. So I'm going to put the camera down and we'll see what it's like. So I took a small piece of that dead wood. I just literally snapped it with my hand, and it's judging from the heartwood and the fact that I can easily notch this with my thumbnail. I think we've got a good example here of basswood. So this particular piece is about a little bit thicker than my wrist, and it's freestanding still. So that would make a very good piece to go after. I'm in a relatively popular part of this park right now. There's a whole bunch of dog walkers around, so I'm not going to really get any more detail. I'm not going to harvest this guy, but it would work, and that's a good example of basswood. Basswood being probably one of the easiest woods that are out there. All right, what I got in front of me is one of my favorite things to see, and this is a weeping willow, and we're actually right at a ditch bank with a stream, and we often find weeping willows around streams. So when we think of sort of survival issues, I mean, one of the first things you're supposed to do is try and locate a water course, because that water course often acts as a navigation aid that will bring you into civilization. So that water course also supplies water for rehydration, and it often tends to be a good habitat for water-loving trees, so cottonwoods and willows being two of them. So again, follow that water course. It can give you water, navigation, and potentially fire. So again, I've managed to get myself underneath this limb, and we can follow this dead piece here, and we see some potential pieces that can be harvested. Those are starting to get a little bit high, and if I swing around, there's another dead piece extending out into the bush, and that's leading me to something much more manageable. And we can see at the tip there, I'm going to have to unfortunately wade through all these brambles, so I'm going to see if I can get around them here. Here we're looking at the tip end of that limb, and just in terms of the size, okay, we're looking at a fistful size, so this is just about right. And I see one below here that I like even better. I just like that sort of gray weathering pattern that it has to it, and I'm going to harvest that with my sack saw. Okay, so we have our 2 pieces of weeping willow, and they've been harvested with the Swiss Army knife saw. And again, I like a piece like this that is well weathered. The bark has come off. You can see that that outer sort of layer is pretty gray and dull. And then we have our crosscut section here, and you can see that I can mark that section pretty well with my thumb. And the other diagnostic is this is a very light piece of wood. If you took up a piece of oak or maple, it would be about twice as heavy for a piece of wood this size. And this is a piece that I'd take both of these pieces and use that to make a both a hearth and a spindle with.